Ironlight
Ironlight,
time, baby. Let's
big
do it.
Ironlight show.
I'm
Um,
excited myself.
so I've done a really terrible job of keeping my synopses short. So I actually am experimenting with a list with highlights. I actually drafted some notes. I'm going to organize my storytelling.
It's a new era for you. It is.
Controversial choice
Are we
to
scripted now?
tell a story that isn't just stream of consciousness off the dome. It's always a talent I felt like I had, but when it comes to time limits,
I'm glad you cracked this out now so you can flex on me. So, yeah, okay. It'll be great.
no, no, no. Well, my challenge is to keep it to 5 minutes. I actually haven't started the timer yet. I'm going to right now.
Yeah,
We're gonna keep it so tight. It's gonna be a tight 15, probably less. Okay.
check out the timestamps right now and see if you did it.
Well, oh my God.
Go,
Yeah,
go,
good
go, go,
point.
go.
No, yeah, yeah. Check our timestamps. Um, so Kartikeya, our Warforged wizard in the Feywild. Azaki, his previous character, in the mix. Now, Azaki has a tattoo, right? Azaki has this sort of strange arcane imprint on his shoulder that was given to him in a circumstance I am not going to explain yet because I intend for my party to watch this and I intend for them to find out when they find out. But this tattoo was one left by one of our B-bags, Niome, the fiendish goddess of secrets. Uh, and it is the product of like a 10th level spell, right? Like it's abjurative magic, divinatory magic.
DM bullshit. Hand
Uh,
waving.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Hand wavy
I know the
stuff,
kind.
right? It obfuscates, it reveals, it protects, and it enchants. Now, Quaff, Azaki's mortal enemy's intention was to activate this tattoo's effect, take control of Azaki's mind, and recruit him back into the fold to do Niome's bidding. However, something that Quaff did not know about Azaki was that Azaki was very strong. He was a strong enough monk to be able to utilize an ability called Stillness of Mind. And Stillness of Mind allows a monk free. I mean, it's the only class in D&D, and another reason why monk may not be my favorite class, but it is the proto class for Charlie. Like it is Charlie's class. Like
Iconic.
when people think of Charlie D&D, I have it on good authority that everybody thinks monk, right? For free, you can just stop being charmed. You spend an action. It's one chunk out of your action economy,
This is
and all the
PHB.
horrible things. Go ahead.
This is PHB. This is base. This is all subclass independent.
Yeah, you get it for free. Subclass independent. Shout out Yasha in crit roll. If she had multiclassed into monk, entire swaths of her backstory would have been, you know what I'm saying? Like just insane. Monks are insane, insane. Um, and so inevitably in the world, during Kartikeya's investigation to see what the hell is going on, Greg reunites his character with his old character. They have a comical chase in this sort of hammock themed tavern in the Moss district of Isoland. Um, but unfortunately, Azaki's wife was kidnapped, Professor Fasharash, the one that was helping Kartikeya, our Warforged wizard, along with his investigation to see where these spell scrolls got off to, right? Why Azaki stole them, where he would be hiding them, what his motives are. She gets kidnapped by Quaff, this Aarakocra that was previously pretending to be an Aarakocra named Lyndon that Kartikeya had run into. I mentioned that in the Moss district, kind of looking for a tavern to hire mercenaries. So in the mix, there's sort of this B story going on that Kartikeya's character knows nothing about, and in fact that Greg knows nothing about. Where Azaki found the sword that his previous incarnation used, just like this famous sword of this famous hero called Laushin Alora. And it was his intention to pass it off to Kartikeya so that he could use it in their fight against Niome. And the special benefit of the sword, I'll explain later. But they coalesce. Azaki reveals this whole time that he was playing along with Quaff's sort of assumption that he was under his control as an ambush, right? Quaff was this mortal enemy. He had mowed down this entire, village alongside Azaki during the time that Azaki was mind controlled. And Quaff slaughtered these two innocent little girls for reasons that are unclear to the party yet. That will be explained. But it all coalesced. Azaki revealed his intentions, and Kartikeya, uncertain at first, managed to beat Quaff almost into submission. Unfortunately, my man's a 20th level monk. He's got movement. He's got hit points. He boogied out. Girlfriend, the damsel in distress, Professor Fasharash, was not in critical condition, but she was unconscious. And Kartikeya threw it out. He said, Azaki, come back with us to the material plane. We need your help. My friends are in trouble. Greg's character asking Greg's previous character to join him in the material plane. Trouble for me, right? Which we'll go into in a second. He rolled a persuasion check. Azaki put his trust in Gawatni, Sentry leader Gawatni, who showed up, who reunited with them. I mentioned that he was sort of conspiring with Kartikeya. They absconded with these spell scrolls that they managed to confiscate off of Quaff and left the Jupiter sentries and the authorities of the University of Isolans to kind of remain in pursuit of Quaff. And Zaki sort of had to leave this behind in favor of helping his friends now and doing what he can now, leaving behind old vendettas, which I think was really incredible character growth for Azaki. Azaki was always a very revenge-focused, this very, oath of, I think there's
Bruce
a paladin
Willis, sort of
class.
vengeful. Oath of
Oath
Vengeance.
of Vengeance. Yeah, I think it's just Oath of Vengeance. But he knew he had bigger fish to fry. And so they teleported back to the material plane. They plane shifted back. They threatened to guard. They threatened to eviscerate and torture a guard to finesse some health potions,
Always helps.
which will have consequences. Because they are employed by that guard and them are both employed by the monarchy.
Don't you hate having to break up every epic fantasy story with like the murder hobo, like back alley interactions between? Yeah,
Right.
You know how it is.
And through a little Deus Ex Machina-ing that I realized later that Greg didn't appreciate, he reunited with the party in short order. And so kind of getting into the sort of the DM side of this, Greg seriously threw me a curveball when he asked his old character to rejoin the party, right? I've never had two player characters, one ex-player character, one current player character, and I have yet to see it for the most part as well, except for the first season of Crit Roll with Sam playing both Tyrion Darrington and Scanlan.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was kind of a tall order for him. So I knew it would be a tall order for Greg. But I think it was a really smart play on Greg's part, right? Marshal resources, get people together. I think in no small part, it was the reason why they handled Kalesh, the Iron Fisted King, so handily, right? It's because they had the numbers, the army, everything. They made short work. And I decided that Lausch and Aloro's sword is in fact sort of a symbol of a sword. In a cutscene, I revealed that Lausch and Aloro was a kind of a seraph. It's kind of black. It's dubious. It's sort of gray about his importance to one of the gods of the pantheon, the progenitora. But in the kind of the king and queen of the original rulers of the two nations of Longol and Targonra. Shout out both to Bobo's previous campaign in Mura, and or no, the Longol was Big Bendra as well.
That
Yeah,
was the start
Longol
of
and
it.
Targonra. I borrow both of those names from Big Bendra's
Solid.
campaign. Um, King North and Queen Pomona Grey united those two nations, became the continent of Josadius. And but they had, in their time spent in the maze of Neome's creation, they had gotten those same tattoos that Azaki had.
But without the monk
Were,
ability to, yeah.
well, they didn't have it, right? Because they were, for the most part, they were regular folks.
Right.
And they were at risk of becoming controlled.
Sure.
So Laushanaloro intervenes. He prevents them with his sword.
It's
And
one
his
way to
sword
prevent them.
isn't what's up?
So that's one way to prevent them.
Right. It's, and you'd think, right? Slashy stabby, kill the scary lady. No, I mean it's more of a symbol, right? That essentially what you can do with the sword is cost calm emotions, which is like a concentration spell, and it stifles any charmed or frightened effect. Right? Azaki had actually gifted Crust, our half-orc barbarian, with a broken blade, Laushanaloro's broken blade. And Azaki had actually tracked down the sword, found the other broken piece of the sword hidden away in the Deep Shrine Temple library. How did it get there? The party has yet to realize. And why did it show up? When it showed up, Azaki got a hold of it. And he reunited. He later reunites it with Crust, but that's a story I'll tell for next time. And it's, I assumed it would be this really great boon, this thing that they would have there.
Anduril, man. Yeah, the Flame of the West remade. You can't
give them the resources.
original.
They're not going to be as, there's not going to be as much at stake in the same way as it was last arc. Like, I wanted the stakes to be different. I didn't want this to be a perfect circle, because in a lot of ways, I'm sure that's what it felt like, right? Keith, our elven bard, Gleason, our dwarven artificer, showing up in this very same map, this sort of sky gate portal that they spent this giant arc 1 climax fight doing battle in. I hoped that would be big. I will say that, and I mentioned this sort of briefly, I Deus Ex Machina a little bit. I just sent Kartikeya and Azaki just back to the party. Like, teleport doesn't work that way, right? Like, you can't just teleport to where your friends are. You have to have like you have to roll on like a chart. You have to roll a D100 on a chart, or you have to have like an item from the place where you want to teleport to get there.
Also, and restrictions.
And Greg's smart, right? Like, Greg's like, yeah, I got a rock from this place. I'm going to teleport to the place. And I was like, in that moment, I communicated it, right? I was like, okay, well, I am going to make a call here and say that the progenitor is just going to intervene right here, throw you a bone, and teleport you right into the throne room where your friends are being kept.
It's badass.
And later I learned, I'm talking to Greg, and I'm like, and he's like, listen, I did want to reunite with the party, right? I didn't like being separated. That was the whole problem, was I wanted to get back to them. That doesn't mean I don't want spells to work the way they work. And I was like, what?
The player wants to dip his toe in the water, but he doesn't want to jump in.
Right. I was like, well, what do you mean? And he was like, I don't know what strategic advantage it would have allowed me to teleport to the place where I had meant to teleport. Like, without the Deus Ex Machina. I get his point, right? Players want to be the ones to have figured out the ingenious strategy to make things happen. They don't want to be given the solution by their DM. You know, it's like, oh, the game's too hard for you, let me make it a little bit easier. That's not a good feeling as a player. Anything, you know, we've run across, that's like a moment for a DM generally, where they realize, oh, this challenge was too hard for my players, and that sucks, right? And I want to avoid that feeling so badly that I just want to give them the solution. And that was kind of the first step I had to take in a journey of realizing if you're going to give players a solution, you give it to them way ahead of time so they can make the connection. If you're going to help them out in ways that they're still going to have to do some thinking. You know what I'm saying? So,
no, it's a very mature approach.
I mean, it was a learning experience. At the end of the day, Greg was happy to be back with the party and to get the ball rolling on the climax of Arc 2. I was glad because the party was one step closer to coming back together. And I'm excited to kind of let you guys know what happens in the next session because it was a mess and it was insane. It was gory and it was not quite the climax, but still like a milestone session for the party. And that's me. That's my time. That was like 15.
Hey, brilliant. I'm glad that Kartikeya's like solo shit wrapped up, maybe not amicably, but wrapped up. You put a ribbon on it, you put a period at the end of the sentence.
Yeah.
And we have.
And I did a lot of talking at the end of our last Ironlight show, our sort of forum about why I did it. And I don't want to beat it to death, right? I just want to get to the point where we can sort of call this a party again.
Sure.
Because it on more than one occasion over the last couple arcs, it was just them doing their own thing. So it's a cooperative game.
And at risk of dissociating into our post-review talks, which we will inevitably do, I think if you have to bullshit something, if it comes down to it, especially something as slight as like modifications of the rules of a spell, it's the move. It's the move. It is not players on one side, DMs on the other, connected by the language of rules, you know? That's the illusion that we would like to keep up. But what it is, in fact, is everyone slaves to, or servants of, a social circumstance, a social environment that we've come together to.
Right.
So if you need to do something so that we can all play a game together, you better do it, in my solo opinion.
Yeah, I think Greg realized that and recognized that, and I certainly did. But I think it was part of a larger problem that I have with Deus Ex Machina ing. But we'll get into that in our little discussion portion.
We'd best. Okay. Yeah. In the meantime, you guys need to learn what's going down in Pragasfar at the time. On the clock, last session contained the death of Azalea Hyde. She was disintegrated by a beholder in a super awesome fight. The party won triumphantly after, escaped, and Arkancelis, this wizard who had been in the one-shot, been around for ages, teleported them to the city of Arkancelis. He's got a bit of an ego thing going on. But to his living laboratory of Lustrialtis, which is a place I came up with before the campaign started. One of the very few. Lustrialtis.
Much anticipated living laboratory, a whole additional Discord server devoted to it. I was hyped. Oh my God. I can't believe we spent so little time there.
I know. That ended up disappointing me too, but I will address that. Lustrialtis, an anagram for the word illustrate, because Arkancelis created it to like build his incredible things.
That's so cool.
Design inspiration for it came from the Workshop Watches from Matt Colville's Arcadia. Of course, that was designed more as a dungeon and like a 2 or 3 room dungeon. And this was never going to be that. The players were not going to have any combat encounters. Lustrialtis is the storage place for a bunch of lore information, a bunch of deep lore information that I had for ages. I just stuffed away in there because it's stuff Arkancelis would have reasonably determined. They had a bunch of resources from Sarastrath. So the party arrives, the workshop speaks to them in a voice like this, and you can adjust its volume, you can set parental controls. It's really funny.
Sam,
the structure for assistive magic. So that was a lot of fun, and Baragon found scrolls of his people. He's a native of Sarastrath, the country that this is in, so he found ancient scrolls that made his monk elemental abilities a little better. I figured those needed a buff anyways, because he's never using them, because punching is better. So that was a lot of fun. Dr. Patch ran into a potions area and made incredibly high-level potions, one of which is a Dominate Monster potion. That's an 8th level spell that I made available to him. applicable without a saving throw if you can apply the poison properly, right? So that was a huge single-use item, which I'm a big fan of single-use items. I think they make for very dramatic storytelling. Players hate them, but as long as you make
Dude, it's the drama, it's the stakes. If players hate them, that's a good thing.
yeah,
You know?
good point. Good point. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So they had a bunch of fun interactions. Arkansas returns the next morning with Vizier, the leader of Sarastrath. Sarastrath is run by a council of very powerful people, one of whom is Arkansas. Another is this ancient silver dragon, Vizier, who the party's heard about. He's like the last big political player in the world they haven't met. So he shows up to discuss important things with Arkansas, one of which is the world is on the brink of war, we have learned. There have been tensions the entire campaign between this young, aspiring technological country and this old world, old growth, D&D, Dragons, Mountains, epic country. It represents a conflict in ideologies between like the D&D as the social personal phenomenon versus D&D as like the ancient fantasy with big fighting monsters and stuff. Two which aren't necessarily at odds, but you know, I can find discrepancies in the rules and elsewhere. So I represented that with
They can be at odds.
they can absolutely spells like detect good and evil, and stuff like that really bring that out. But anyways, Vizier talks to them for a little while. They have a really cool debate on autocracy versus democracy, on war versus peace, on if peacetime can be bad for people and if war can ever be good for them. Cal Reverie stands out in this conversation as far removed from everyone else. Really, I feel like Arkansas, Baragon, especially Patch, Vizier and Patch had a moment of dialogue wherein they both sort of agreed that war, there are things more important than human lives, and war can come about as a result of that. Cal blatantly disagreed. But this accumulated in the party realizing after a while that they were being scryed on, presumably by Eriswile, the place Rectress Arlenlauder, the owners, the teachers of Azalea Hyde, who lent her out to them as an on loan party member. So this creates huge problems. She's from the Nyx Fair side of things. Vizier and Arkansas are from the Sarastrath side. It breaks open this whole conversation. Vizier turns into a dragon, flies off into the sunset. He says, I can't be around here. This is not a safe place. Our information's being infiltrated. We need to move tomorrow. If we want the initiative in war, we've got to go fast now because the enemy is probably about to find out. So he takes off. The party takes off as well with only a last comment from Arkansas, who turns and addresses Cal Reverie, but speaks, or turns and addresses Claymore Patch, but speaks not to him, but to Arlo Fix, the sentient weapon that Patch just got last session, and says, your son, who Arlo Fix's entire backstory was in the service and protection of, Arkansas says, your son is brilliant. He's here. He's under my purview. Not with any promise or any guarantee, not even necessarily as a taunt. It was simultaneously like a promise and a sort of poisoned backhanded comment. You know, it's like lording this over him as he has to go forward. But in any case, the party makes for Eriswile. On the travel there, they run into Anton Parlis, the leader of Nyx Fair. He teleports out to find the party because, hey, he just got the word, we're about to be at war. You guys have been in the service of Nyx Fair for a little while. You're capable, you're competent. He goes to promote Baragon Emberclaw to being a general. He sends one of his people to look for Claymore Patch, who conveniently took a walk at the time. And Patch picks up a note of hostility. He feels like he's being hunted. That's the read he gets off of a really cool insight check. And so he stays hidden the entirety of the time. Cal, refusing to participate in this war drive, trying to bring the whole party together, stands back. Only Baragon is promoted willingly. Parlis teleports away. The party continues on towards Eriswile, which is a city they'll have to pass. The city of the woman who's scrying on them right now, Rectress Arlenlauder. And they're not sure how she's going to react when she finds out about Azalea's fate. Because Baragon has been summoned to the plains of Eastern Nyx Fair, where a fleet of airships is being assembled to fight the dragons of Sarastrath in an anticipated aerial battle near the city of Bellamon. Tensions are really high. Party is going to have to pass by Eriswile, And of
You know
course,
what I heard? You know what I heard when you said the aerial battle was the bum 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 bum
yeah.
the Fire Nation, the blimp and everything, the Zeppelins. Oh my
Oh,
god.
it's gonna be so sweet if it comes to that. But that was the session. That was the whole session. What's really remarkable about this sesh, what you would probably never have guessed from oh, I guess I did cut my recap a little short, but that's fine. I'm out of time in the matter. The session continued a little bit longer, but I planned out this massive amount of time spent in Las Realtes. Like each of these rooms had a bunch of weird quirks and a bunch of lore information that the party could access if they had an interest in, to teach them about the stars and gods and shit that I should have learned long ago. Players have middling stakes in at best. Um, so not a lot of time was spent there. We kind of checked our boxes and moved on, which was fine. I mean, Sam, the speaking automaton laboratory controller, had a couple really funny lines of dialogue. There were some really great interactions. But that entire part of the session was planned. I had like written out, these are the rooms, these are the places they'll spend time in. I thought this place had been hyped up enough, and we breezed through my plans so fast. So everything, gunned by it. Even checked most of the major boxes. But I started sort of flying off the cuff when I had Vizier visit, as well as Arkancelis. I wanted the party to have a chance to talk to this guy, this Arkancelis, who's been so important to the campaign and its machinations for so long. But I don't know, I thought Silver Dragon would add some stakes to the roof from an opposing country. I thought it'd be epic. So he shows up and he starts dropping a bunch of Legend of the Galactic Hero quotes, talking about autocracy and that power is the belonging of one generation. It doesn't belong to bloodlines. Parlis shouldn't be able to rule just because his father did. Blah blah blah. Saying a bunch of really anti-democratic shit, which was awesome. I love doing that. And got some resonance from Patch even. But what I noticed this session is that once I started improvising and left all of my notes behind and stopped tabbing over to Google Docs all the time, the session got a lot better. Like everyone after the session told me that the first half was cool, but once we got into the second half, like I was tripping. I was freaking out.
Wait, who said that?
You did.
I did?
Of course, this session did go on a little longer than I narrated. It ended
What
in
the
a while.
I can't believe you detected that.
No, you don't think so?
The implication there being that I liked the first part of the session. This is what I hear you hearing, was that I liked the second part of the session more than the first part.
It's not really a question of liked, it's energy. You guys gotta like the whole thing.
That's not how I felt. That's not how I felt. The energy, I don't know what you're talking. We'll debrief. We'll debrief.
You're right.
Finish your point. Finish your point.
That was the ride. In any case, I'm so comfortable in not planning shit now. It's out of nowhere. It's the way I'm going to continue with Pragasvar. I'm scared because that strategy has serviced me well for long stints and then led me into problems I can't solve. But I think I've matured as a DM, and it felt really cool to feel that way after this session. The players had a couple really cool moments. Baragon, Max's character, loves being a general. He loves being promoted. He loves being sort of a high ubermensch, great man theory, military dude. And he's excited to go into this aerial battle. He splits from the party at the very end. Since he has this sort of like governmental protection, Baragon will go on to continue into Eriswild to talk to Arlen Lauder, to face down the woman whose student they just got disintegrated alone, whereas the party will sneakily try to get into Eriswild because in the background, I probably should have mentioned this in my session recap, Dr. Patch has had correspondence with his sisters, Lucerne and Maddock, which was hidden from the party up until now. There have been a series of letters exchanged by them throughout the first few sessions, and it has accumulated in his sister Maddock is sick. They don't know what's wrong with her. It's some strange magical disease. Patch writes and says, bring him to Eriswild. You're a day's travel away. Get to the city. I'll find you there. That was before Azalea got disintegrated and the stakes around the city changed a little bit. But he will go to Eriswild to meet them with Cal, and terrible surprises will await them in the next session recap. Shit's gonna get pretty heavy and pretty gory again pretty fast. We might be in for a bloodbath at the next Ironlight. But yeah, this was exploring. This was lore drops. This was high theory conversations. This was traveling through the open countryside. Dr. Patch, I loved the moment from Houston's role playing when he's like hiding in the grass and he tries to get a bead on this guy that's looking for him. He can sort of see and hear the party. He knows something happened. He knows Parlus is there, and he's got a gun with Parlus's name on it. That's gonna kill the guy if he sees him, if he wants. So Patch is like he shadow slips. It's another Arcadia made homemade spell. Shout out to MCDM for a lot of this shit. What?
I
I
did
told
not
you to
know
read
this.
it. I told you to read it. It's worth no paid sponsorship here, folks. It's just us DMs have to compare notes across time and across media. That's one of the ways of doing
It's a
it.
Matt Colville inspired show. I don't know.
It's a Matt Colville inspired show. Not necessarily. My first campaign that I ever ran was, and now I'm totally derailing, was based heavily out of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. I took character names, I took locations, I took not really plot points because that shit always ends up improv for me, but I took a lot of thematic inspiration as well. And it was so much fun, but I felt so guilty and insecure about it sometimes that I decided, Pragasvar, we are deleting like all such influence. It will be as sui generis as possible, with allusions only to our most recent D&D campaign and blah 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 blah. But so on and so forth. That was the session. It was a lot of fun. I had a really good time. And the session coming up after this, Baragon Max couldn't make it, so it's going to be just Cal Reverie, Charlie, your character, and Claymore Patch, Houston's. And you guys get a ton of attention, and it's sweet. The duality weapons make every social setting so much funnier. Having a second person's voice played by a different character in each of their heads. I was so worried it would get so trippy and confusing. It's awesome. It means that a character is never alone. There is always social presence everywhere.
Arlo's fun.
Arlo's a fucking blast. That's my session recap. That's what DMing it was like. It was sweet. It's a big setup for a lot of Fallout, which is going to come really, really soon. 9 to 10 sessions left in Pragasvar, I think.
Oh my god, dude.
I got it.
9 to 10.
We're gonna roll out that third duality weapon.
We are winding down. I can't believe it. I'm gonna be heartbroken. I plan it. It's in my GCal. Be heartbroken. My Google Calendar.
I refuse. Maybe we continue it to the sole effect that I refuse to commit a sin that I've seen committed in my first campaign and the one we played in as players afterwards, which is like, here's an awesome weapon associated with each character. These characters are going to get it early game. This character is going to get it before the final fight. I've refused.
No,
I refuse.
Listen, I don't care as a player. Cal doesn't care as a character. And perhaps the abiding truth that doesn't give a shit about you or me is that if a campaign goes on too long, it dies one way or another. Endings, I mean, you've said it, Donald Glover has said it about his musical career, and most people are too afraid to say it, but know that it's true. Endings are necessary.
Kaiser Reinhardt says that anything that's alive after it should have been dead gradually decays. It's true for a nation as it is for a man.
Exactly.
Shout out Pragasvar to decay.
Shout out Lustrialtis. That's a great segue. Jordan, I can't believe that I made you feel like
oh no
prepared part of your no, shut the fuck up for this is about me. This isn't about you. I can't believe I made you feel like the prepared part of your session I enjoyed less. Like that the energy was, dude, with you didn't even mention the variable the variable personal I forget the name of the device you gave me so that Cal could go back into Net Node into the Astral Sea. I mean, Sam and Lustrialtis and Vizier, dude, it was a mess.
That's right. No, Arkansas has had a gift for each of you. That was yours.
I need you to give me the exact context in which I said the words that made you feel this way. I need to understand what must have been going through my head, out of my mouth, into your head.
Hey man, the first half of this session really wound me up, but the second half knocked me on my ass. I don't know what we're gonna do. Talking about you and Patch having just rolled for initiative at the end of this session.
Wait, so that was wound you up. Okay, so
Beats my meat, man. Let's not linger on this. Mercy.
let me at least explain, okay? Because
Also,
it's
what's if you
important.
can't?
It's important for me to you. It's important to me that you know how essential it was. Like two halves of a whole. I couldn't have gone, and none of us could have gone without the other half.
Right.
The point of that being, I didn't expect intervention from both sides of the war. Vizier on one side, because it did wind me up, dude. It was a wind up. It was like, okay, well, we have this force moving in the background, moving in the shadows. Thank God we're privy to it. We have to move before shit goes south. Even any more than it already has. Because at that point, it had gone way more south than it would go even for the rest of the session. Right? War is going to break out. There's someone actively plotting.
That's true. It's go time.
There's no way we could have guessed, no way we could have expected. There's zero way we could have expected Prince Parlous to show up with his consort at promoting us,
No way I could have
getting us
predicted it
involved,
either.
the change of heart, everything with that. With Vizier, with Arkansas in Lustrialtis, I wasn't afraid for my life. Cal wasn't afraid for his life necessarily. In the woods, in the middle of the night, with Prince Parlous and his consorts, Cal was afraid that he was afraid that he would have to fight for his life, right?
And that's your guy. Isn't that
I
interesting?
think that's the difference that Cal understood. As a player, I needed to be known. I needed to be understood that the stakes, the bowling pins had already been set up, and like half of them were knocked over. The bowling pins being set up is an amazing, amazing thing, and it's one of the reasons why I play the game. Then they were knocked over in the same session, right? Yeah. Lustrialtis was beautifully prepared. I can't wait to return. And the parts you prepared were so, I can't imagine Pragasfar without them because they were so formative. So don't stop preparing because there's some notion that we're better off without Lustrialtis or all this shit that you think carefully about, you know?
Okay. Yeah. No whatsoever. You make,
like I said,
solid points. I cannot bicker further. The matter.
Like I said, this was this whole explanation was for my own peace of mind and to make you as visibly uncomfortable as you are right now.
No, I should be better at getting complimented. It happens so often, you know.
It's not it wasn't even.
I know. It's not a compliment. It's a report.
It's a. It's more of a sugar-coated ass covering. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
At any rate,
into this. At any rate,
what is Vizier anti-democratic for saying Prince Parlous can't rule Nyx Fair because his father did? Is that anti-democratic? I feel like that's very democratic.
Yeah, that comment might not have been, but he believes that power has to be seized by like sufficiently worthy individuals, and that if you don't have like the wisdom and the power to govern, then someone else should rise and take it from you. Like that's the logical way these things settle out, which is Baragon. Like that's always been the vibe I got from Baragon's idea of his tribe and stuff. So I thought he would connect immediately, but Baragon remains fiercely loyal to the dude he signed up with at the beginning of the campaign, which was cool too. I mean, that's a decision. But yeah,
Baragon, like I don't know if you have to strike a line between ideal and like tradition, like reverence and culture. Because on the one hand, loyalty, right? Is that an ideal? Is that naive? No, like Baragon is clinging to this previous allegiance, not because he thinks it's probably a good idea. He'd probably like to do his own thing, but he's a man of his word.
Facts.
You know,
That's
is that
badass.
is that an ideal? Is that naive of him? I don't know.
I think it's sweet.
I think it's a way to kind of streamline your mental health.
Hmm.
Like, oh, well, it's not my fault that these things happen, even though I was part of them, because I was adhering to this rule that I had set already and decided to hold myself as someone with integrity to not break.
Oh, so it's almost like a cop out.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna sling that slang about Baragon.
I should neither. I like what he did. I like what he did a
I
lot.
think that Cal admires Baragon in a lot of ways, and I think Cal's very naive. But I think Cal also sees the grays and the blacks and the whites. I think Cal doesn't disagree that there are things more important than human lives.
Interesting. Does
And I think
Charlie?
he's
How does
naive.
Charlie feel about that question? Tangent. Are there things more important than human lives?
Of course, quality of life always supersedes human life, right? But war is good for neither.
Oh, how?
You know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
no more people are going to wake up in the morning and say, "Thank God I woke up this morning. I'm so excited to get back to war." You know what I'm saying? It's
Oh boy, here I go, Warren again.
here I go killing again. Crumbopulous Michael.
Yeah.
Um,
Whack.
I Cal came from a place of I don't know. I don't know. I don't. The thing is that Cal's a diplomat. Cal understands a lot of things about foreign policy, about cultural intricacies, about the continents that I don't. And so
You've
to
got him picked.
pretend that I could even delegate and arbitrate and like empiricize the values of lost life and lost quality of life and war, all I could do was really just be. I could stick to my pacifist guns. I could be lame. I could say, let's not go to war. And then have things happen anyway, because Parlus and his consort are sort of this unstoppable force.
It seems that way right now, doesn't it? This rising tide of energy.
Right. What we have yet to find out is if Vizier is an immovable object.
True.
Because that's what war is, right? Unstoppable force versus immovable object. Everything other than those two ideals, those two ideas, are caught in the wake. Quality of life, economies, ecosystems. You know, in World War II, with the amount of weaponry and its strength that we produced, we could have split the Earth in half. I think 17 times. I think that's
Something to
the
that effect. Yeah.
statistic.
Oh, it's way more than that now, I'm sure.
Yeah, way more.
So it goes
And
to
so
show.
I think Cal knows, and I'm realizing that war means so much more than who prevails. It means like the gods. It means Castro. It
Where
means
do we
that if
make gods from? You know, it must be. It
yeah,
must be such huge cultural clashes as war and technology are.
right.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And I'll wrap it up on the simple note that for Cal specifically, I had a very early image for his character. I had like this idea in my mind of a situation he could be in relative to like this war that's about to happen. Um, and I'd still like to see some version of it. You know, I'm not going to insist that if you guys change things so that that doesn't come about, then it won't. But the natural course of the world is leading towards this moment that I came up with ages ago that I thought would be a perfect test for a diplomat. So,
Are we up on time?
how are we doing on time? Oh yeah, we got a little bit of chat left. What else do we have to talk about?
No, I wanted to say what I
Please.
so you've got this moment planned, right? This is gonna be the diplomat's test. Did it happen already?
No, 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 no,
Oh, okay.
no, not whatsoever. I still have this idea in my head.
You know what? I think about it like once a week is that moment where we first talked with Parlus and you narrated like the two consorts like pushing the chairs underneath them and they sit down in this tea and then Cal just sort of starts having like three conversations at once and it's just like this natural recourse of his work. That was that transported me from pretending to be a diplomat to I am this. I am Cal. This is my world. This is what's at stake. This is what I have control of. I felt in that moment like I could get Parlus to think more deeply about things. Not necessarily do what I want, but think more deeply about things and find a common ground with him. Now, because at its core, at its fundament, the opposite of diplomacy is violence. And Cal isn't afraid to lose his power. Cal is afraid that all forces of diplomacy will lose their power. Because once the first stone is cast, once the first wound festers, then there's nothing anyone can say. There will have to be an amount of lives lost and changed for diplomacy to even be an option again.
That's awesome. That's a character who believes in an ideology, not in a circumstance.
And I think that probably in most cases, war is inevitable in the same way that if you are in a positive time in your life, you must anticipate bad times.
That's a great question for a DM too, right? Like, do you make war inevitable? Is it in the real world? Like, do you make there be some way that this could not happen? And the honest answer is, I don't know. Like, would this be preventable? What's about to happen in a day or two in Pragaswar? I don't know. I really don't.
Cal is this person who doesn't, I don't know. Maybe Cal even feels like war is going to happen sooner or later, but it's a fundamental concept of stoicism. Sun Tzu's Art of War. In peacetime, you prepare for the bad, and you don't dwell on it. You don't spend all your days sort of anticipating it and becoming an anxious wreck and not enjoying the good times. It's because when the bad times happen, you're going to be busy trying to stay alive. You won't have time to prepare.
It's better to be a soldier in a garden than a gardener in a war.
And so now, as things are exploding, as Prince Parlus and his consort showed up, as Urkling took him, and Bobo, I've been meaning to tell you this, and I think it'll be dramatic to tell you over Ironlight. It might be a reason not to send it to Max and Houston before our next session.
I'm nervous.
And this alludes to something that you have yet to explain in the recap. Once Cal comes to, he intends to down his medicine. All of it. The stuff that's killing him. I don't think it's of a big concern that he dies. I think that might even be in his mind probably something that would be a good thing, a net positive.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like when he downs the medicine, I think like he imagines that it will be either fatal or cause a significant amount of disability.
For those of you who have zero idea, for the majority of the world, what happens next session, shit gets pretty heavy. It doesn't go great. But
so I wanted to give you a heads up about that before it just happened.
We'll hit our game with a content warning for sure. I don't think Houston or Max are particularly sensitive to that sort of stuff. But it's really good practice. So.
I have my trust in Max and Houston is implicit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a trust thing, it's like a safety thing.
Right. That was more me as a storyteller who loves tragedy porn, giving you a heads up for rules' sake. Like, I don't know.
Thanks.
Like,
No,
I
you're
didn't
right.
know. Like I didn't, because if somebody did that in my session, I'd be like, okay, what do I roll for this? Like a death roll? I don't know. So anyway,
Yeah, no, the poison is a very hand wavy thing. So thanks for the heads up.
yeah,
We
yeah,
we,
yeah.
we can discuss Cal and War and Peace no longer, um,
Yeah.
because we don't have a lot of time. But what else is huge in the realm of our shared D&D lives right now? Crit
Um,
Roll Campaign 3 has begun, so that'll move the community in mysterious ways.
and you've witnessed it. You've
I've
seen
been
the first episode.
I've chipped into the first episode. I've not watched all of it.
Okay. Okay.
But
I don't know how much talking we did about the state of Critical Role during Ironlight.
we we have
But
we have it's so huge in the community, you know. For
yeah,
talking about D&D.
but I know we talked about endings, and I know the kind of consensus we came to about Crit Role is that there isn't one in sight, and maybe that's not a good thing,
Yeah.
you know? And I mentioned this too, I can criticize and debate and like look down my nose at Crit Role as much as I want. It doesn't change the fact that it's like a really cool thing. It's like a
well
cool
done.
show. And always when I start watching it again, I'm like, this is cool. I enjoy this.
We'll have
However,
a
reluctantly.
podcast where we just trash Crit Roll, get it out of our systems. We can enjoy it normally in our off time. The little flavor of guilt, really, I think it brings out something in the whole experience.
For you, like for you personally, or for do you think the cast?
Well, that's a good point right there. I was talking about me, but I'm sure no, they probably don't have a lot of remorse. They're making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That's just how that goes.
I've been thinking about Jordan and I were talking, and he said, always stay a novice. Don't do the thing you love for money.
Be an amateur. Yeah, amateur. Yeah.
Right. I think that's why so many comedians are so horribly depressed, because levity is in its essence frivolous.
That probably sounded great.
Tech issues.
There'd be a warning in the doobly-doo.
Yeah. Headphone users warning. because levity intrinsically is frivolous, and trying to turn something that is frivolous and sacredly so, reverently so, into something serious, trying to make money being a comedian, is probably a source of horrible cognitive dissonance. You know what I'm saying? It's no wonder why we get people like Robin Williams, you know, these comedians who are heavily sedated by antidepressants, you know, uppers and downers and all these sorts of things, because it's just like it's a conflict. It's a fundamental conflict. How do you monetize fun? How do you monetize
stream your game?
How could you possibly monetize love?
Well,
what a horrible thing. What a horrible thing to do. It's so often the thing that people feel like they have to do in order to live.
Let's make a world where that doesn't happen. Let's go there. Let's interact there as friends instead of here as friends. It's better.
It's Pragasfar, man. More every day, more and more, every session, I'm feeling like that's what Pragasfar is.
A good place.
We don't have to. We don't have to, man.
So on and so forth. Those are my major points. This is
yeah.
Mine, so.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Ironlight, guys. It's only exploding from here.
Oh, we're getting better every time. You know,
get into the meat of it in Josadius.
Yeah. We got a budget now. We got revenue.
We got a mic. We got a Michael.
We're working on it.
Okay. Love you guys. We don't have it.